going to record this as well so that if it happens to crash, we can upload it later. So, going into Myth and Tarot on the Hydra. And I'm not talking about the cute little hydrozoa creature in fresh water that would like to sting you, because, you know, those little guys are friendly and all. This cute little fella, which was once thought to appear immortal, because it doesn't really seem to die. It has amazing regenerative, it can regrow itself. And it has a wicked little sting, and they use that sting to numb, to paralyze, and then to help start digesting their food before they get it in their mouth. Pleasant. But we're not talking about those guys. We are going to go into, if my mouse would quit jumping around, to in a realm closer to the demonic. Pretty simple there. And that is commonly referred to as the Lernian Hydra. It's the most well-known story, so we're going to stick with that. We'll toss in a couple of the other little tidbits as we go. It lived in a swampy area of Greece, just outside the town of Lerna. Obviously why it got its name. And this Hydra is a nightmare, and I don't mean maybe, born from Typhon and Echidna. And I do want to go over this dark couple a little bit later, because ever since they got together, let's say Greece has not had the best experience with monsters, because those two are the parents of the Chimera, which I previously talked about, also Cerberus, and the more I've looked, they were kind of the parents to the monsters. Could have maybe kept those two apart, Zeus. You'd let those... Okay, come on, Zeus. Not great. Anyway, I really don't know what my... Really annoyed with my internet right now. The Hydra was seen as a fully serpentine originally, with many heads. The number varies. From some of the older documents you get back to at birth, it only had like 3 heads on very long necks. It was said that the Hydra, every part of the Hydra, skin, breath, blood, venom, was all poisonous. Not something you would want to eat, get bitten by, or really even pet at this point. There are some images that show an almost dragon-like appearance. So some images of the Hydra are like this guy here. Legs, and some of them have wings, which makes no sense because the Hydra was not a flying creature. Lost my place. The Hydra plagued the swamps with its toxic breath and its evil presence. The smell was horrendous, it has been said. And if a person ever stumbled into it by accident, they would meet a most gruesome and painful and great place for a vacation, right? Common myths have the Hydra being slain by Hercules. But what fun is that? I mean, we're here to talk about them like they might still be here. And they might. You never know. Some of the first references to the Hydra were around 700 BC. From what I was finding as I was digging around, it was shown on a pair of brooches was the first image depiction, and with that image, the Hydra had approximately 6 heads. Later, the number would go as high as 9, and then 50. There were variations within that. Those were the more common numbers. I'm not sure why I keep dropping frame rates. Kind of annoyed with, like I said, my internet's not being great tonight, and it's ticking me off. So, why are all these variations within the Hydra? This is where the Hydra really becomes a genuine nightmare. So, think about that coming out of the swamp. You're just minding your business out there, you know, hunting swamp frogs, and this pops up. Not really sure if I would be okay being in that situation. And apparently neither was most of Greece, because Hercules got involved. um, the biggest threat with the Hydra is, guess what happens when you cut one of its heads off? 2 grew back in its place. Some sources say 3, and there's some of the more modern myths that say, oh, many heads grew from each. No. 2 or 3, but each time you cut off a head, that means it would double or triple the amount of problems you would continue to have. Either way, you couldn't kill this thing, because you'd lop off a head, 2 new, 3 new would pop up in its place. And this is why I believe some of the sources that said that it had 3 heads at its birth or hatching. That kind of makes more sense to me than some of the other stories. Just saying. There was a belief, and it wasn't so much a belief as looking at parentage to child. It held the gift of immortality. But according to the myths that include Hercules, only 1 head had the gift of immortality. Okay. And with that, to sever that particular head would kill the body of the Hydra. Notice phrasing. And that's how you would have Hercules take it out over time. So, let's bring in the Greeks' savior, the demigod son of Zeus, and find out what his role was in the undoing of the Hydra. Hercules, because of some not so great things that he had done, was assigned 12 impossible labors to be completed solo. One of which was to destroy the Hydra. Cool. Interestingly, though, he destroyed almost all of the bad creatures, so we don't have them today. Or do we? The legend goes that Hercules took his nephew, Aeolus, this name is not one of my favorites, to help him slay the Hydra. I just have to say, Uncle of the Year award, let's take my nephew who's not an immortal, and let's go play with deadly poisonous creatures that can kill you. There's something wrong here. Anyway, Hercules had not done his research, because he was just a hothead for a lot of his life, and found out the hard way that he could lop off 1 head, but then 2 or 3, depending on the legend, grew back. Cool. And after a few battles, and the story here gets a little blurry. Some say Hercules devised this plan. Others say that it was Aeolus that devised this plan. But either one of them decided that if Hercules cut a head off and Aeolus put a firebrand, which is just a hot, fiery end of a post, on the open wound to cauterize it, it would stop the new head from sprouting from the fresh wound. The Greeks had some interesting logic on some of their things, I'll give them that. Because according to the legends involving Hercules, this actually worked, and it would lead to the end of the Hydra by Hercules' sword. Leaving out the glaring issue that each of the severed heads would be able to regenerate to a certain extent as well by virtue of its parentage, Typhon and Echidna, Hercules would eventually sever the immortal head and bury it under a boulder. You just chopped off the head and it flopped around there, and you were like, I have to do something with this, so you stuck it under a rock. Okay. It is said that you can still see this boulder somewhere along a road to Greece. Anyone for a field trip? Let's go move a rock. Just kidding. I would love to go to Greece, to be perfectly honest with you, and if I happened to kick over the rock the Hydra's head was under, you know what? It's been a good run. Another variation of this legend has that Hera, of course this evil wench would be in here, his hateful and vile stepmother, and I don't say that to be mean to women. Research Hera. She was, even before Zeus started his philandering, Hera wasn't a pleasant person to be around. She aided the Hydra, of course she would. She always picked the person who did the most damage, by sending a giant that she had raised to assist the Hydra. A giant crab. You can put 2 and 2 together on maybe where that crab was raised. This crab bit Hercules, or pinched him. One story said bit, one story said pinched. You can decide which he did. And Hercules was so mad over basically an offensive bite that he smashed the crab to death and hurled its body into the stars. And I love Greek myths. This is where we get the constellation of Cancer. So when you look up in the sky and you're like, that doesn't look like a crab, it does. It's a smashed crab. That's why it looks so weird. Don't come for me for that. That was a good joke. The Hydra in this version would eventually get its own constellation as well after it was removed from life, mainly because Hera was like, oh, no, you will never forget this creature, and she stuck it up in the sky. Like I said, Hera was not a friend to anyone, man or woman, human or beast. She was, woohoo. And I do want to go over her, but that's going to be a long topic because Zeus is going to be a big topic as well, but Hera, good grief, that girl had more drama than, let's just say, there was some drama there. After the Hydra was deceased, Hercules coated his arrows in his quiver, every arrow he had in his quiver, with Hydra blood, making these arrows the most poisonous arrows in history. That's kind of terrifying. Hercules would shoot a centaur who was trying to do some really bad things to Hercules' wife, and when I say that, there's certain words you can't say on the internet, but it's what a bad male will do to a, we'll say, innocent female. That's what this particular centaur was trying to do, and the centaur was named Nessus. Nessus was shot by one of these poisoned tipped arrows, and as Nessus lay dying, and again, the Greek myths, there are points where they make no sense. As he was dying, bleeding out, he would set a trap to get his revenge, and oddly, the revenge for the Hydra as well. So Nessus is laying there bleeding out, convinced somehow the wife that he was just trying to have his way with, that she could save a vial of his blood and sprinkle it on Hercules' clothes, probably loincloth, but we'll say clothes, and if his love ever waned from her, and it would bring him running back to her, it would reignite his passion. Why would the person who's about to assault you's blood make your husband love you again? Like I said, Greek myths have their moments. The legend holds that I'm hoping we're connected back in. That was obnoxious. It literally just said it disconnected me. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I am recording it, so if I have to, I'll re-upload it. And yes, as Greek myths would go, Hercules did have a bit too much of his philandering father in him, Zeus, and his love eventually waned, his eyes wandered off, so the wife did as Nessus said, sprinkled this tainted, toxic blood all over Hercules' clothes. And guess what? The Hydra got the last laugh. The poison that killed Nessus, that infected his blood, was caustic. And that caustic blood burned Hercules alive. Ate his flesh from his bones was one of the phrases used. So Nessus did get his revenge, and by proxy, so did the Hydra. Another version of this legend holds that it was the blood-soaked cloak of Nessus that Hercules' wife was convinced to keep, and if his love ever waned, give him the cloak. Again, what? Why would you be like, oh, my husband just killed you because you were trying to do bad things to me, but you're telling me that your blood or your cloak is going to save our love later? Okay. Like I said, the Greek myths have some interesting things about them. Is this all there is about the Hydra, is just the Greek myths? Not really. We can even go further back in the Wayback Machine to Sumeria, Babylon, even some of the Assyrian myths and legends surround this horrific creature. One of them was from Mesopotamia, so you're more of Assyrian, and it's an almost identical, because I looked up the different variations, it's almost an identical story to Hercules and his 12 labors. Was this other, and I didn't write down his name, this other hero and his 10 labors. Of course, the Greeks would have to one-up somebody, but the similarities are almost too great. But one of them was the slaying of the Hydra. The myth of the Hydra, though, is not over yet, because the Hydra is still going strong today. It makes appearances in H.P. Lovecraft work. One of his Lovecraftian monsters was Mother Hydra, and she was the queen who sat a throne very similar to Cthulhu's in the mighty pre-world before us nasty little humans showed up. There have been movies made over the years. To be honest with you, most really aren't that great. There was one, and it's a cheesy movie, but it is kind of fun, is the original Mortal Kombat's from the late 90s, early 2000s. The second one, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, has the Hydra as an animality, and they actually did not too bad of a job describing it. It is not, it is not high quality, but it's not a bad description. The Hydra has also shown up in comic books as the name of bad guys, not so much the immortal multi-head things. There are a little bit of those out there, but that's not as strong as some of the other options. So, with that being said, if you're interested in any Hydra-related interesting creatures, there's a little figurine, and then if you're wanting to make the Hydra a little bit cuter, I found some plushies that are absolutely adorable. So those are linked in the description, and they are affiliate links, so if you click on those, it does help support the stream. And then I also linked the Mortal Kombat set. It's the first 2 movies, not the most recent stuff. One of which, the second one, has the Hydra. It's Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And with that, we'll hop into the tarot. And because I am really good about not remembering to do things before I start a stream, let me pull up my little cheat sheet here. If I can remember what file I put it in, because I'm, like I said, batting 1,000. But I had an interesting weekend. It was not one of my better ones. We'll just call it that. Okay, so close that. There we go. So the way I do these is I read the tarot as if the creature that I am dealing with is sitting directly in front of me. In this case, we would be sitting across from a vile serpentine creature with multiple heads, probably wanting to eat me or at least blow venom at me as much as me sit here quietly talking to it. But we are still going to, do the tarot thing. And I use the basic Celtic cross outline, so we just get a general overview of what the Hydra's reading would look like. This is a reading for fun, but if a message comes through that you're like, actually, that kind of makes sense, then Spirit has its own way of communicating with us. my suggestion is when you're told to rest, you should do that, because I didn't, and then I got unfortunately laid up for about 2 days. So Spirit has its own way of getting your attention. It's best to listen when they're being nice about it. So, and I won't go into too many details, but if you've ever had migraines that make your eyes want to be wrapped around in gauze so that you can't see any daylight, yeah, that's pretty much where I was at on a couple of days of last week. So, because I wasn't resting, I was doing too many things. So, and I am chattering away here as I am drawing my cards, because I don't draw like a lot of sit-down tarot readers. They will draw off the top. I shuffle until the cards come out to tell me which ones are which. So, we are going to start with the significator. So this is the Hydra in this particular moment of time. Oh, that's not nice. She can't be in a nice place. The Hydra technically is genderless according to all the research I found, which is weird because most of the time Greeks would assign something to it, but not the Hydra. There is a couple of people in later times that assigned the Hydra female and Hydrus, which is the male version, but that doesn't go back very far. It's not like the ancient myths, so we'll call the Hydra an it. It has the Eight of Chalices as its significator. So in this moment, right now, this particular snapshot in time, the Hydra is in a period of emotional quandary. Not really sure what to do, what next step to take, kind of floating, like not really great, not really bad, not really anything, not really sure what to do, and they're just kind of bobbing along like, I don't really have a good direction. 8 is the symbol of immortality, so this is not like a new quandary for the despicable Hydra. But the Hydra's, what I'm seeing right here just from this is the Hydra's had a rough life. No one really likes it. No one wants to be around it. I mean, it's a giant multi-headed snake. I can't imagine why someone would want to be around it. And it was driven into a swamp. Okay, that I can give it a little bit of pity, but not much. So it's not had the best life because it's been living in a swamp. But the thing that's challenging it is the One of Chalices. So there's some new emotional energy that's wanting to come in, and it's challenging the Hydra's stance. So maybe it's a little bit of compassion, like maybe if you didn't go into town and smash buildings and try to steal children, you wouldn't be in this situation. So there might be a hint of compassion coming forward, or it could be outsiders coming in to be like, why are you feeling like that? Why are you so hostile? We'll leave you food if you just leave us alone. So there's something new, and it's triggering an emotional response for the Hydra. Let's just be honest. The Hydra is not comfortable with this. They don't like it. And I say they because you can pick which head you want to talk to. They're not okay with this, so this is definitely something that's challenging them. Their higher self, which is not the greatest option, because the person that guides the Hydra is either Echidna and Typhon or Hera. This isn't great. Anyway, the High Priestess is their higher self. Their higher self is being guided by a divine feminine, so we're looking at Echidna or Hera. So their higher self, the higher aspects, they're actually being encouraged to improve. Okay, it's a higher self. We can work with that. In Hera's version of what I'm seeing, she's wanting them to become the better monster. Improve the way you attack. Improve your destruction of villages. But with Echidna, it's more of improve the terror, but you don't have to actually go and do all the damage. So it's kind of build your myth and make it a deeper myth, a darker myth. Grow that myth, but you don't actually have to go out and do all the damage. Their lower self, their root, their subconscious, is the Six of Swords. I love this deck, but I have to edit a little bit. So, the Six of Swords. Yeah, Six of Swords. We're talking about some intellectual stuff. Intelligence is not the Hydra's strong point. Just to be clear, none of Typhon and Echidna's children are smart. They're run 100% by animalistic passions, whether that is eating, inappropriate amorous connections, or otherwise, violence, etc. They don't have an intellectual capacity, so their subconscious is really the Six of Swords. What I'm seeing is it's something that they're running away from. They don't want to deal with this. They're just going to, if they can't feel the emotion, they're not interested in the response. Very much primitive, primal, reptilian brain, if you want to go there. I mean, it's a snake, so of course reptilian kind of fits, but they're very much that directed, so they're really not dealing with life well. They don't want to deal with thoughts. They want to deal with emotions, but not good emotions. They don't know how to handle that. It makes them confused, which then they go to anger. So they're right here, the Hydra is not looking so great. I mean, for the Hydra, it might be amazing, but for anyone else, their immediate past, they're an immortal. We'll go back 200 years. The devil is in the details. No, the devil is showing that they've always been the contrarian. The Hydra has always seen what's the best path for everyone else. I'm doing the opposite. They don't want to have anything to do with the mainstream. They really don't want to have anything to do with people being nice to them. That's just, ew, gross. They would much rather stay in their dark, stay in their danger, stay in their nightmare. And the devil in this aspect is their guiding force was what will do the most destruction. So their history is not great. Their last 200 years, again, they just keep finding ways to mess things up for themselves, which isn't always great, but that's what they've wanted. So their immediate future is the Five of Swords. Intellectually, they know what they're doing, and the coming future is sad. What they have done so far with their life is leading to sadness for themselves and sadness for those around them. They are not doing well. They're not happy. Overall, they just want it to end. They are done. They just intellectually, like intelligently, they're tired. They want to cut away all the BS and be their true self. But again, their true self is pretty violent, so whose happiness are we looking out for here? Their attitude, how they're seeing the world, is the Nine of Wands. They are very carefree. I mean, as much as they're kind of having these inner thoughts of, well, I just want to be myself, their outward attitude is like, whatever, we don't care. Very frivolous, very devil may care, because the devil cares. But it's very much about just casting off other people's opinions, because why do we care? And the other thought that's coming up with this Nine of Wands is there's two women on it, and Hera and Echidna are the two that keep coming up with the High Priestess as their higher self. So they're also being guided to be a bit more frivolous and a bit more throw it all away, it's not that big of a deal. Their environment, so where they're currently at, is, just 1 second, I can clear notification, is the Knave of Wands. So we're dealing with a little bit of fire energy here, and this is a passion. So their environment is a bit more, they're showing me it's a bit more orderly and a bit more focused, but it's driving a passion within them, but it's also driving a little bit of severity. It's a little bit of strictness. Passion is great, but it has to be reined in, and what this is saying is there's some discipline that has been applied over the years. Could have been Hercules, you know, never know. They might still be stuck onto that rock, so if anyone's wants to roll that rock off of them. But their discipline over time has improved, so they're not just lashing out like they were. They're still not in the best of places, but they are getting better at controlling their animalistic urges. Their hopes and fears, the Chariot. Their hopes and fears, they're just driving forward. They really don't care about fear. They'd rather inspire fear. They're not scared of much. And so you've got this driving force, this I'm pushing forward, I'm going to do this energy that's coming forward for them in their hopes and fears. And it's more about, they don't really worry about the hopes, they don't worry about the fears. they're just on a mission and they are going. So, the overall outcome here is the Hanged Man. Overall, they need to look at things from a different perspective. They need to get away from that higher self energy, especially of those divine feminines that are not actually the best options. The Hydra could be an amazing guardian. They have made choices to not be. And so their outcome is they need to take a look at where they're at and how to adjust it, improve the way they look at the world and how they deal with it. But the way they've been looking at it just is not working for them, and they really need to change and adjust it. At least that's what the cards are saying. With that, these readings, like I said, are just kind of for fun. Give us a little ha-ha about the mythological creatures. If you enjoyed this stream, please drop a like on the video. Please hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and comment down below. I'm going to check how the live stream went. If it wasn't great, I'm going to delete it and I'll re-upload it because I'm recording it, so we can at least get a clean cut even without the internet being weird. With that being said, I will let you guys go. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you in the next video.